see you, but
Well, good afternoon, good evening, bienvenidos, one and all. I'm Sandy Yannone, your host of Cultivating Voices live poetry, and it is the first Sunday of the month, which that always means it is our Poets Focus. And today, our theme is, as it's been on our event page, and our posters traveling around the internet, science slash fiction. Well, always with our Poets Focus, it's our featured readers. And today we have Lynn McGee and Kim Roberts and Michael Gushue uh, as a collaborative feature. So we're really looking forward to our featured readers sharing from their new collections. And then, of course, those of you who are live with us here in Zoom for the open mic. Before we get started today, I just want to mention a couple things. I want to, of course, thank everyone who joined us during what I keep calling International Poetry Month. April was an astounding month of poetry all around the globe. Wherever I looked on the internet, there were readings, 50 readings a day. I certainly enjoyed opportunities online and in person, and I just saw such an abundance of poetry, which was very, very inspiring and humbling and incredibly exciting. So, what happens in May? Well, at Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, we don't take our foot off the gas pedal, so to speak. It's poetry month every month, so we just will continue providing the poetry here, as I know many platforms around the globe do. And one that I'll give a quick shout out to is I had the occasion to listen to the amazing May Storms, the podcast from Damian Donnelly, who joined us in April at the beginning for our Poets Focus on Memory, from his podcast Eat the Storms, out of the Dublin area in Ireland. And it went county by county with 32 poets, and it's all available still if you're interested in having an incredible carousel of Irish voices. I encourage you to go look at Eat Eat the Storms, the podcast, and the episode is May Storms. It it dropped on May 1st, which was Poetry Day, Ireland. And before I do a little bit of housekeeping as well, I just want to acknowledge there's a little tenderness in the room here today. One of our members passed away very unexpectedly last week at the Edmonton Poetry Festival in Canada. And we're going to be beginning the open mic today. Max Vandersteen's going to be reading a poem in honor of David Brydges, and we're going to do something in a couple weeks in our open mic. David loved our open mic, and he not only was a member of Cultivating Voices and a contributor to our program many times over, but he also was one of the rare people who was a guest host on this program. So I spent quite a bit of time off camera, and I just want to just send out condolences and our best, most heartfelt wishes to friends and families who are really grieving that loss of David. And we'll talk more about him, but we'll have the first of our um, acknowledgments will be coming up a little bit later in the program as we begin the open mic. And thank you so much, Max, for being here today. Well, folks, again, I'm so looking forward to our reading today. And we have Lynn McGee and Kim Roberts and Michael Gushue who will be reading from their newest collections. as well as again you, all of you on the open mic. All of their books will have mention of them in the chat for purchasing. And of course, I hope that you will use the chat enthusiastically and respectfully and wholeheartedly with your appreciation and support of the poets today. The chat's always live, and we welcome your comments and with each other in our community here in Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. So without further ado, let's head right on into our poetry science project for today. Our first reader is Lynn McGee. And what I want to say about Lynn is, well, first of all, I have the unbelievable good fortune to be co-host with her on another program, West East Bicoastal Poets of the Pandemic. And Lynn is the most amazing and gracious host. She actually writes the most incredible introductions of poets that I hear anywhere on the internet. So it is not surprising when you read her book and when you hear her poetry, which I've been enjoying her book Science Says Yes with just great wonder and appreciation and awe, really, for how she has managed to do something that I don't see very often in collections at all, which is the titles are as intoxicating as the poems themselves. They really illuminate what's going on in the poems. And I was just as mesmerized by the titles as I was by the poems. And I feel so fortunate that I was recently able to hear Lynn read from them live as well as she's, bringing out this book. So I just want to say thank you for being just an amazing poetry sister and supporter of Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, but a supporter of poetry in general. And I feel really honored to call you my friend and collaborator in our poetry endeavors. And congratulations on your book. And here's a little more from the more formal bio. Lynn McGee is the author of Science Says Yes and Tracks, both with Broadstone Books, as well as Sober Cooking from Spitten Duval Press, and two award-winning poetry chapbooks, Heirloom Bulldog from Bright Hill Press, which of course is from the just I love Bright Hill Press. Love Bright Hill Press.
Bertha Rogers.
Yes, Bertha Rogers, my salmon sister. Bertha, thank you. Of course, we should lift Bertha's name here. Thank you. And Bonanza from Slappering Hall Press. Another amazing people at the Slappering Hall Press. We featured them here. Her poems have been published widely in journals and anthologies. She's the co-author with Jose Palaus of the children's book Starting Over in Sunset Park, Tilbury House Press. Lynn earned an MFA in poetry at Columbia University School of the Arts and taught in private and public colleges, secondary schools, and literacy programs before becoming a communications manager at Borough of Manhattan Community College, the City University of New York, where I believe you are just recently retired. And I hope that that means you will be able to lean into all things poetry and all things that you endeavor to care about and do. And I'm so thrilled to have you here on the program, just celebrating your new book. Thank you, Lynn.
Hey, wow, thank you, Sandy. That was such an amazing introduction. Thank you so much. I love it that there's a podcast in Ireland called Eat the Storm. And I feel like it really resonates with a lot of the messages in my book, which are to make friends with the things that you're most afraid of. And we're surrounded by storms right now of every possible kind. So the only way to not, I mean, you can either choose fear or you can choose And so choose something else. And so with that, I want to start with this poem. Welcome to the Age of Anger. A woman I knew went to a recycling center where they let her smash glass with a mallet, goggles slippery with sweat. The weight of a baseball bat would do it for me. The heft of the lid on the back of the toilet would fuel a good swing. But what would be the target? What object of impact would explode with enough force to suck the darkness right out of me? The trick is letting the darkness stay. Give the darkness your key. Stir charcoal and animal fat together and dab a tribute to darkness on the wall of your cave. Pick a spot where the sun hits each day. Watch it laser through the dark. Watch the dark change cell by cell. Feel it settle inside you. Happiness is for opportunists. I passed my second, God, it sounds like there's a giant, very low, I'm not in a flight path, so it's always alarming when there's a giant plane so close overhead that it rattles your apartment building. Happiness is for opportunists. I passed my second decapitated bird of the day, gray dove with a ragged red throat. Maybe she was sipping water trapped between paving squares on the sidewalk. A cat saw his opportunity and pounced. Opportunists live longer by their own design. When wolf populations are low, they mate with coyotes. When wolf populations are high, they kill coyotes. Emotional AI is no substitute for empathy. Jesus knew it wouldn't be viruses that would wipe us out, wildfires, or nuclear war. He knew it would be a lack of empathy and tried to guide us in the other direction. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Now, AI has been made in our image, and it lacks what we lack. Scientists say, give it sensors placed in the environment, vulnerable to forces it can't control. Teach it suffering is unacceptable in any solution set. AI thrives despite its flaws. It carries on like any monarch, any god dogged by unregulated lust, hubris, greed. And then there are the humans eaten by their children. Manage your energy, not your time. Dystopic movies normalize dystopia. Fast food normalizes fast lunches. High heels normalize compliance, and the crowded subway normalizes subjugation. You commute home, eroded by the day's negotiations. Your living room darkens, and the yellow sky goes indigo. Silence surges over you, interrupted now and then by the whoosh and clack of elevator doors sliding open, closed. Your neighbor's footsteps rise and fade in a Doppler pattern down the hallway. Cells begin to recognize each other in your reintegrating self. When enough time has passed, you turn on the light. Differently alert. A rapport with machines gives autistic adults an edge. He doesn't make eye contact. The nurse reports of my nephew who is limp with sedation, lips slack, ventilator wheezing on his behalf, inflating his lungs in a rhythm both amiable and stern. He looks right past me, she says gently. He's probably unaware of his surroundings. We thank her, too polite to point out the monitor's appeal just behind her, neon green zigzagging across its screen. We don't bring to her attention the splendor of syringe pumps stacked in a tower, the elegant tangle of cables, polished elbows of pipe. My nephew, who took the door off the stove before he could walk, who faked seizures to score an ambulance ride and be rolled into that luminous cavern of tools, stares past the nurse at an alluring silver dial, a corrugated blue tube, and is unbothered at being part machine now himself, almost fitting in. Tell me one more time what to do about grief. When the familiar feels barbed, when it scalds, let the unfamiliar be your solace, as chunky paperbacks were for me, blood-soaked covers fanning across the sale bin at an all-night Walmart, as was country music, not crossover hits from the Dixie Chicks or Roseanne Cash, but songs that twanged and squalled at the bottom of the chart, salty with static from a radio kept low, songs that made a circle of low flame around me. A taste for nostalgia, why food memories are so powerful. Let me just, did I talk about the titles? I know I did before we started the reading. I don't think I did just now. But just so you know, the titles of the poems were not generated by the titles. I wrote the poems and then I did a Google search trying to find intuitively a headline that resonated with the poems. And oftentimes that revealed things to me about the poem that I didn't even realize I was doing. A taste for nostalgia, why food memories are so powerful. Lightning ignited a band of woolly oxen huddled beneath a tree, and charred meat hit the menu, sending more fuel to human brains and less to their slippery, churning gut. Fast forward a few millennia, and a child holds up a white plate, tilts it at her mouth to drink the blood from a steak, while 40 million cattle swing by their hind legs, entrails squeegeed into a trough, and 9 billion chickens flap in water laced with lightning, bringing this story full circle, back to the spark, the smoking flesh. Crickets crave grease, and so do we, gastric acid activated by a street vendor's skewered chicken on an open flame, the halal truck at lunch hour, charred hunk of lamb sizzling on a spit. And I would give anything to see my father at the grill, basting ribeyes, wielding the stainless steel tongs in one hand, frosty can of beer in the other. Tarantula in Black, spider named after Johnny Cash. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on a second. The machine is asking me to, yes, English, thank you. Okay. Tarantula in Black, spider named after Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash sang from the blonde hi-fi in our house, and he wore black for the poor and beaten down on the hungry side of town. He was the same age as my father, who was coltish and tall and cast his fishing rod with a quick, casual whip. Someone who has the power to do so, name a just found streak of rock, a block of onyx pulling darkness, then releasing it as light. Name that rock after my father with his quiet flair. Name a new species of migrating tern, forked tail splitting with never before seen snap and fan. Name that species for my nephew with his unruly genes, his differently split ways. Let some newly discovered indissoluble speck, neither somber neutrino nor high-spirited electron, let that particle be named after his mother, my sister, her flash intact. Okay, I'm almost to the end. I think I'm going to skip that long poem. A little worried about the time, which I forgot to check when I started. Okay, 3 more. Why women are key to solving the climate crisis. I want a raven to land on the railing of my balcony while I'm stretched out on the chaise lounge drinking a pale ale. I want the raven to move its gaze up and down my body, and when it determines I am neither food nor foe, I want the raven to push off and unfurl its opulent black wings and instantly forget me. Everything I know about forgiveness, I learned from my dog. Her breed is trained to hunt wild boars in red clay ravines, moss draped on scrub oak and fog erasing the mangrove's leathery leaves. Puppies chase a raccoon trapped in a mesh barrel bouncing down a hill. They lunge and nip at a boarlet in a harness tethered to a tree, so young he has chipmunk stripes down his back, squealing for the sow shot earlier that day. I toss my dog's fake prey across the room. The squirrel has orange eyes and a squeaker in its tail. The beaver's belly is torn flaps I stuff with crumpled paper for the thrilling, crinkly sound. My dog is an apex predator who sleeps on a foam bed. She neither flushes nor retrieves target mammals. She sniffs the sidewalk for goldfish crackers thrown from a stroller. She looks to me for approval and tracks my mood like the child of an alcoholic, shrewd, watchful, driven by self-preservation and a hunger to belong. And here's the last poem. Why starting over can be the best thing for you. The frog's heart generates a gel that grips its organs like antifreeze. In spring, the frog thaws from the inside out and blinks. Every winter that passes is a triumph. I clench my gut, carry longing for the sun like an egg in my throat. I start over. I blink. Thank you.
That's Lynn McGee, everyone, from the just incredible collection, Science Says Yes. And I just want to say a few more things about the collection, which is, in addition to the titles, which just they mesmerize and befuddle me, and they're full of their own wonder, which matches like the really interesting wonder I find in the poems themselves. Listen, everyone, to the titles of the sections of these poems. Not the titles of the poems, but just the sections. The range of where you go, Lynn, in this book is it's so vast and so extraordinary. Business and technology. And then we move in, which the first poem in that section, business and technology, is happiness is for opportunists, which we just heard. And then we move to style. And then we move to climate and environment. And I'm going to just say the title of that first poem in that section. Lethal weapons may have given early humans edge over Neanderthals. And then finally, we end with a section called Opinion, which you shared the first poem from that section, Welcome to the Age of Anger, the first poem that you read. This kaleidoscope through scientific inquiry is really only matched by what you really explore around like human emotion and intelligence. So many of the titles of these poems actually refer to like human qualities or psychological profiles or ways of being in the world or emotional states of being. And I find it so interesting when I remember being taught in my lifetime that science is supposed to be so objective, and here these poems, they take these incredible paths through narratives of 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 human inquiry and also human folly. And when you're talking about that idea of hubris and greed, like the constellation of all of those things, the book is so far sweeping, and I just really am impressed with how much you cover in one collection. It's really astounding. Thank you so much for being with us today, getting us started off on our exploration today of science slash fiction. Well, we're going to move to the science fiction side, although, Lynn, I'm sure you would agree that there's that element of science fiction looming through your poems as well, as all the scientific inquiry. And yeah, so thank you. Well, our next readers, I love it when we have collaborators on the program. It's amazing to be with poets who have worked together so dedicatedly, and what often seems like effortlessly to put a collection together. I find it hard to just put a collection together with myself. I can't even imagine the process of doing that with another human being. And and yet this is what we are about to hear from Kim Roberts and Michael Gushue. And Kim is no stranger to our program. We first we first had the amazing opportunity to be with you when we explored the literary history of uh, African American literary history in Washington, D.C. area with you, when you had brought out your amazing anthology. And you've been on the program a couple of other times as well. And I'm so happy to have you back with your own collection of poetry, and then to top that off, to be in collaboration with Michael Gushue. So thank you both for being here. And let me share your bios, your formal bios with our audience. Kim Roberts is the author of 5 single author. See, this is what a collaborator does. That's the signal that you're a collaborator, right? That you signal that I have 5 single author collections, and then yes. Kim Roberts is the author of 5 single author books and 2 collaborations. Most recently, now here's a title for you all, and that you're going to love that we're going to hear from this book. Q&A for the End of the World. There you go. You and Lynn should get together in a room. You should expand it to a trifecta of poets and collaborate, because obviously you all have titles down geniusly. The book, most recently, Q&A for the End of the World, was published earlier this year with her collaborator, Michael Gushue, of course, and Corona/Crown from 2023, who she collaborated with Robert Revere, who's also in the audience today. Welcome to you. Her second DC guidebook, Buried Stories, Walking Tours of Washington, D.C. area cemeteries, will also be coming out later this year. She curates DC Pride Poem a Day each June, and she has been incredibly humble in her biography here. She was the founding editor of Beltway Poetry Journal. She has done so much as a poetry citizen in the DC area and outside of that metropolitan area. Yes, your bio is very, very humble, Kim.
Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome. And please, I'm really looking forward. We're heading into June next month, and we're doing our own Poetry Pride Parade, which you've been part of in the past. And so I'm really looking forward to your Pride Poem a Day. I always look forward to them. Thank you. Michael Gushue is the author of 4 single-author books of poems. Most recently, yeah, I love your titles. I love all of the 3 of you. My gosh. Sympathy for the Monster from 2023. And 3 collaborative books of poems. Most recently, as we're going to hear, Q&A for the End of the World from 2025 with Kim Roberts. He is the co-founder of Poetry Mutual Press and runs a column of very bad advice with C.L. Bledsoe on medium.com called How to Even. It's an incredible joy to welcome the two of you and see where we land with these questions and answers for the end of the world. Would you please help me welcome Kim Roberts and Michael Gushue?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. So let me start by just saying a little bit about how this happened. Kim and I have known each other for about 25 years, and we've been in the same writing group for 16, 17 years. So we've known each other a long time. We know each other's work very well. Our work is very different. But last March or so, we went with Kim's partner out to the movies, to a museum, to see a showing of an old Japanese monster movie, Mothra versus Godzilla, Mothra being a giant moth, Godzilla being Godzilla. Now, Kim has never seen a science fiction movie of any kind.
I hadn't at that point.
At that point, when we went to see this movie, she's spent her life, childhood, everything, not seeing
a
any
wasted
movie.
childhood, evidently.
Not wasted, but just like locked in an attic somewhere. Not having ever seen any science fiction, horror movies, anything of that sort whatsoever, complete innocent. I was raised by movies. I devoured movies, and a large portion of those were science fiction and horror and just every possible genre of movies. Science fiction being, one of the ones I loved the most. On TV, at matinees, just everywhere at all times, and watching them over and over again. Completely, my whole being is interlarded with science fiction movies. So we went to see this movie because Kim's partner Tracy also likes movies. So we went and saw Mothra versus Godzilla, and emerged from that, and Kim was stunned and was just could not wrap her head around what she had just seen, and was like, what did I just see? What, this made no sense. And Godzilla's 100 feet in one shot and 500 feet in another shot, and what these weren't eggs and what were pupas and was it just, she just peppered us with questions and puzzles and just the sort of illogic and not making sense of the movie. And I thought that was the end of it, but it was not. The next writing group, she brought a poem called I Have So Many Questions About Mothra versus Godzilla, which did exactly that. And I was astonished, but also felt challenged that she was not going to let this go. And so I felt that I had to respond. So I wrote a response poem to that. And
called I Have All the Answers.
I have the answers to Mothra versus Godzilla. And then she did it again. We saw another movie and I have so many questions about the day the earth stood still. So at this point, I took her aside and said, Kim, you poor child. Obviously, it's time to introduce you to the 20th century and bring you up to speed and make you more of an American. And so we started a course of watching films. We started a Wednesday matinee course at my house.
Because of course Michael owns copies of every single one of these films.
Yes. And we ended up picking out nine films, sort of essential films, all dealing with the end of the world of one sort or another. And we would watch the matinees, and then Kim would write a poem. I have so many questions about blank movie. I would answer that poem, which I have the answers to this movie. And we did that for 9 movies. It was like lightning in the bottle. It went very quickly. It was astonishing.
Well, if you're gonna watch a matinee, one a week, you have to, if you don't want them all to meld into one another, you have to write the poem immediately
That's right.
afterwards.
And so right. And so we were on an assembly line to get these out. Kim had to respond to the movie. I had to respond to the movie and respond to Kim's poem. And so and also make them, be satisfied with them as poems too. And so we went through that process.
Fastest process ever.
Fastest process ever, and also very enjoyable. And at the end, Kim sort of wrote a poem to sum it up. And there we were with a book of 18 plus one poem. And then I felt like we needed sort of an introductory poem, and that was actually the hardest to write because I wasn't responding to anything, just trying to figure out, how are we going to get you into this book?
And maybe we should start there.
And we should start.
Yeah.
We should start with
You
that.
want to read that?
Yeah, let me put my glasses on. But let me say that although they're about the movies, they really the subtext is really about Kim and my friendship too. I think it's and our differing views of things. Movies being one of those things. So this is the first poem in the book, and it's called The End of the World.
What you can't see on the camera is the cat. Wait, cameo, reaching out to dig her
Okay.
her talons into Michael. There we go. Okay.
The End of the World. I back out of my driveway. Maybe there is a bright streak in the sky, a burst of radio static, a flying saucer dive bombing out of the blue. In the Arctic, an atomic bomb test arouses a prehistoric monster. A milquetoast bank teller hides in the vault to read while the city is destroyed. Uncle Ira isn't Uncle Ira.
No.
A giant mantis, a giant locust, a giant ant, a giant buxom blonde. Mole men, cat women, devil women, queens and fire maidens of outer space. The earth explodes, the earth catches on fire, there's a crack in the world, magma erupts. Everyone's dead, everyone's a zombie. We've been waiting for the end of the world, on the lookout for the telltale signs, for the right scenario, for the last 75 years. But it slipped past us. It was another day, exactly like today. So that sets you up.
So what we ended up doing were these sort of call and response poems. For every movie, I have so many questions after watching whatever it is, and Michael has a answers poem.
Although you will find that the answers are
Yes, yeah.
Typical for Michael, not very answery.
they're somewhat yeah.
The other thing I want to say is that Michael added some great added value, because even though we did this every Wednesday for months, he felt that it wasn't quite enough.
There are notes to
every movie, and then there's also a list of additional movies that he thinks are essential. So if you
need additional homework, and it continues on the next page after that too. So
all right, so in all of these movies, the world ends as we know it in some way. We're going to first do our call and response on The Thing from Another World. Anything you want to say to give some background on?
No, it's been remade a few times.
But you should definitely be watching the original one from 1951.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have so many questions after watching The Thing from Another World. Oh, and I should mention all of my poems. This is not true for Michael's, which are more in free verse, but for all of my poems, the poems begin and end with the same line. And there's a pattern of end words also that you don't need to worry about. But I made up a form for mine. I have so many questions after watching The Thing from Another World. There are no enemies in science, says the doctor. Only phenomena to study. What are they doing at the North Pole? What do they study? They grow cabbages in a greenhouse, measure spikes of radiation with a Geiger counter. Meager measures for an extreme place until the thing arrives. With its skin cells under his microscope, the thing shows the doctor its true, horrible nature. To evolve from a plant, how remarkable, how horrible. The sap that runs through the alien's veins, the seed pod extracted from tissue under the alien's palm. The doctor declares it our superior in every way. Then the thing's severed hand comes alive. Ooh, the way its talons curve inward on the table. It moved, but only when fed by blood. How naive, how moving that the doctor plants the pods, fertilizes them with the men's blood plasma. The plants pulse like blood, pulse like eerie vegetal hearts. Through a stethoscope, we're told they sound hearty, like the wail of a newborn child, growing rapidly. Why are the aliens trying to grow an invading army? It seems that all our weapons are powerless. The doctor pleads with the men, put down your weapons. Knowledge is more important than life. We owe it to our species. His life is not spared by the attacking alien. Why is there always a martyr, just as there is always an obligatory love interest? A woman asking, anyone want some coffee? A proper woman needs an excuse to enter a room full of men. Cue the high winds, the magnetic disturbance that keeps the men isolated in a confined space. Theremin music swells. The alien is a walking vegetable, some form of super carrot, swollen to enormous size. Only high voltage electricity can kill it. The men make a metal web, an electric fly trap that reduces the thing to ash. There is nothing left to study, just a big black pile of ash. Keep watching the skies. Who knows what will next descend? Will we descend to our baser selves again, or learn that fright is our true foe? Can we ever truly learn there are no enemies in science?
So my poem is I have the answers to the thing from another world. I just want to say that although although these films you'll watch them and they reflect the mores and culture of the 50s. The women will provide the coffee and the eggs while dressed in full makeup and
High
poodles
heels,
and high
right.
heels and poodle skirt. But they reverberate throughout, but you can't help but see through them us now too in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a net that captures us also, I think. So in a lot of them. So I have the answers to the thing from another world. I just want to say that in this film, although he's not the director, Howard Hawks, who's a well-regarded filmmaker, had a big hand in it. About things from another world, they were never wrong, the old filmmakers. How well they understood the need for a good siege, camaraderie, and fast-paced dialogue. How to get it all going with a compass that goes awry, a radio on the blink, and men fanning out on the polar ice, arms spread to outline a buried flying saucer. The 8-foot frozen alien will prove the smartest space rutabaga ever seen. Sap for blood, thorned knuckles. It regrows torn off limbs, raises an army from spores. Unlike soldiers, women know vegetables. You don't defeat a carrot, you cook it. A Geiger counter's tick builds the suspense until a Nobel Prize winner, too smart to spot the danger, tries to reason with a potato, intent on drinking men's blood and taking over the world. After the things reduced to ash, we're left with knowing how easy our displacement is, how close our obsolescence might be. Welcome to the 1950s, where fear, not science, unites us, where thinking and knowledge open the door to Arctic chills, atomic blasts, sexless, emotionless things from foreign worlds. Keep watching the skies. That sleight of hand, of nothing up the sleeve. Another way of saying, pay no attention to the little man behind the curtain.
I have to say, I love the way that Michael's answer there starts with a mirroring of that very famous W.H. Auden poem, Musée de Beaux-Arts.
About suffering that never wronged the old master.
Yeah. It's just a
snuck a few in there.
Yeah, you do. He's very sneaky. So the next movie that we're going to do also has worlds in the title, The War of the Worlds.
End of the world. So worlds are going to show up here and there.
Anything you want to say about the War of the Worlds before I?
Oh, I have so much I could say.
Uh-huh.
But no, other than that, this film actually we went to see at the movies.
Oh, right.
This is the
yes.
one. This is the one that they happen to be showing at here in Washington at the American Film Institute Silver Theater. So we treated ourselves to seeing it on the big screen, and it was great to see on the big screen, but I don't think it made any difference to our poetry, particularly. So.
Okay. Yes. So there were two that were not seen in Michael's living room.
Yeah.
All right. I have so many questions after watching The War of the Worlds. Is there any true escape? 3 meteor capsules each release 3 alien hover ships with 3-part electric eyes. The aliens in the ship have 3 purple sucker-tipped fingers. 3, Michael suggests, like the Holy Trinity. But surely only Christians are holy, not these pagan aliens. Pastor Collins holds his Bible aloft, chants the Lord's Prayer, holds out hope for interspecies understanding, and gets vaporized. Is this how we understand the enduring importance of faith, despite martyrdom and the destruction of churches? Can faith in miracles save the planet? Not the atom bomb, not Sylvia's fried eggs, not the Pacific Institute of Science and Technology. Against a green skeleton beam, all our technology is useless. Martians could, in only 6 days, take over all of Earth. 6 days, the exact same number as it took God to create the Earth, Sylvia exclaims. More proof that God is our only sanctuary. Although bacteria in the air kills the Martians, it's attributed not to the quality of the air, but, as church bells peal, to divine intervention, by which the filmmakers mean a divine Christianity, despite the photo of the Taj Mahal. Why is every major city except Washington leveled? Every time we face our worst fears, we always fall back on religion. We have so little to fall back on. Is there any true escape?
Yeah. So they took a thick brush to this to H.G. Wells on this one, really. So Yeah, so I have the answers to War of the Worlds. Um, this one follows fairly closely along to you. I think I just played with it a little more, I guess. So, um, do we have a second? All right, so to give you an example of the notes, the the Martian war machines, they shoot these green blobs out of their things. And in my notes, I say that the sound it makes, which is you very recognizable, was made by hitting a high tension cable with a maul, a big heavy hammer. Um, and that sound effect was kept on file, and it was used in the original Star Trek series for launching their photon torpedoes. That's the kind of extra value that you're going to get from this book, besides just
In the notes.
just the poetry. So I have the answers to the War of the Worlds. The Martians were ours before we were the Martians. When that red planet swam into our ken, it was already swarming. God of war, of warning, exo-Venice awash in canals. So no surprise when it turned its thirsty mind to its blue-eyed cousin and sent hogsheads barreling toward us to plow up the hills outside Linda Rosa, California. It takes a hunky astrophysicist with one day's stubble, leather jacket, fishing rod, reel, tackle, and glasses to ascertain it was no meteor that fell, but, scientifically speaking, a gizmo from another planet. The Martians' war machines rise up, Danish, modern, and graceful. These floating manta rays with cobra necks and heads for gun turrets blast out heat rays and blobs of green mesons. It takes an army's whole artillery, infantry, Northrop YB-49 flying wing, and an atomic bomb to demonstrate we are defenseless against their machines. It's time to destroy civilization. London, Paris, don't forget Los Angeles. When a whole city is in ruins, it takes a big crowded space like a church to find your lost girlfriend. Where nothing is safer from heat rays than tall stained glass windows. Where you watch the juggernaut predators wobble and crash, their snaky necks drooping, a trap door fall open, a jittery three-fingered hand drop out, quiver, and die. White flags, weapons not even science worked. It took Earth's germs to wipe them out. Our cities are rubble now. We've become an angry, looting mob. Near anarchy is loosed. The lessons we learn are harsh ones. Only God can kill the Martians.
We've done so much talking that I think we only have time to do the last
one.
last poem in the book, which was my final word, I guess.
Yes, yeah. Summing up.
Yeah, indeed. So before I read this, I want to thank Sandy Yannone and the whole crew, Don Krieger and Kim Parsons Port, and also Lynn McGee, who's those were incredible poems.
Yeah.
An honor to appear with you. What fun. What fun.
This was really, this was a blast.
So the final poem in the book is just called I Have So Many Questions, because, you know, fun as this was, it resolved nothing.
No, it absolutely, yeah.
I have so many questions.
I just want to make clear that I didn't answer a single effing question that you actually brought up, in spite of my saying that I will and each time. Yeah.
So, I have so many questions. What have I learned from watching all this science fiction? The science is a lot more like fiction. Look thoughtfully at a beaker, wiggle some dials. If something in the dark wiggles, pull out a gun, not a Bunsen burner. Consider the end of mankind. It's up to older white men to defend pure research. Women are good for packing up equipment in cases and making eggs. Days will be packed with fretful meetings around a conference table. A high voltage weapon provides no defense. In our distraught age, those who panic first are lost. Our best hopes lie with the men with the squarest jaws. The best effects are low tech, strings, moody lighting, high gloss, matte paintings. Coffee and love are our highest ideals. We must never reveal our fear. Fear is just another word for vigilance. All the differential analyzers, jetpacks, and robots make no difference when civilization crumbles. The hero understands better than the rest of us fools how to stand up to the invaders, what things look like under a microscope. He would like eggs frying in a pan, domesticity in the meantime, even if there's no time to eat before the world ends. Sometimes there's prayers, but only love ties up the loose ends. That's what I've learned.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you,
I
Michael.
really do love Gene Barry in War of the Worlds. He's such a good Yeshiva boy. He's just such a cutie pie. Anyway, thank you so much. This was really fun.
Oh, Sandy, come back, come
Here,
back.
here I am. Here I am. Oh my gosh. There's so much to say before we head to the open mic, but the first thing I want to say about the observation is that even though you resolve nothing,
Well, Kim does, but
which you said a number
I
of times,
lied.
I resolve nothing here. The thing that we were able to witness and what the hundreds of people that watch our program and our recording after will see is like this just pure unadulterated joy that the two of you had through collaborating.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Comes through. And I have a feeling that it wouldn't have mattered what you were writing about. I think that the act of writing being in conversation with each other, and you said it at the beginning, Michael, that these poems, that this project became as much about your friendship together as it did about the subject matter of the poems, but really both come through in such an enthralling way. And for me personally, I'm a bit of a Trekkie, but I haven't watched a lot of the films that you've mentioned. So for me, it was also like this incredible it's this book it's like being in a film study or film theory class also, which is super cool.
That is such a compliment. Wow.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you have like the notes section and what I mean, like it really it feels a little bit like, and the way that you banter, of course, I felt like, wow, we were provided with a syllabus. We've got the professors in front of us. We've got, we're getting the poet like.
Okay, so what I didn't say, Sandy, is that prior to each matinee on Wednesday, I would get a little pressy.
Oh my God.
Michael would tell me the things he wanted me to watch for, and I mean,
Yeah. So you were really given an
this was supposed to
education
be for my edification. Yeah.
right, how to watch a film critically in this genre and what to be looking for. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And it's
the ideal collaboration where you exchange what you know.
yeah.
Absolutely. And this is Michael's obsession that he kindly, generously endowed to me.
And now you've shared it with all of us. And it's also making me think like, I hope someone will do a similar project on B film disaster movies like The Towering Inferno
Oh,
and
God.
Poseidon Adventure and things of that nature.
Yeah,
Titanic, of course.
yeah.
Like
Oh, so yeah, so those are exactly, it's the same thing that happens in those movies that happen in these sci-fi movies.
yeah,
They reflect the fears of their time period.
yes, right. They're all
Fears,
about anxiety. Yeah.
right. The fears, the prejudices, but also the goals and the hopes in some ways too. And
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Thank you both. The book is called Q&A for the End of the World. There it is right there. I love the cover too. And of
Oh,
course,
can I just say that the cover was done by our friend Dan Vera, who's a brilliant, brilliant poet as well as a brilliant book designer. And yeah, I couldn't be happier with the cover's just fantastic. Yeah.
well, I look forward to your next collaboration and please come back
Well,
with
we'll have to see what we can. We'll have to see what I can get him into.
well maybe she can allure you with one of her interests.
Maybe
Ah,
some. Yeah. Well, it's
And you can
you never
like
say never.
the flip side of this. Thank you both. Really amazing. I love it. I
thank
just can't, yeah, it was just pure exhilarating joy and fear.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, folks, we're getting
I can
ready
do that.
to head to the open mic. And thank you again to Lynn, McGee, and Kim Roberts and Michael Gushue. Um, I have not been more terrified and more mesmerized in the same reading, I have to say. Um, wow. Well, we're gonna head to the open mic, as I said, and I think well, of course, we go to the 90 minutes, so we're going to the half hour. On the half hour, we've got about 28 minutes. I think we've got 7 or 8 folks. Folks, if you want to put your name in the chat, if you're interested in reading, it's going to be one poem up to 3 minutes. I think we have a few slots left. And for those of you who may have joined us late and of course, what we always hope is that you might be able to share with us to the theme. Today's theme, of course, being on our Poets Focus Science slash fiction. And you have just seen a master class and from our three poets in how to write poems um, to a theme they didn't even know that was going to be the theme. But oh my gosh, did they fill the theme just extraordinarily today. So, on to the open mic. I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say on this topic. We're going to start first, though, however, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, our dear, dear friend David Brydges passed away unexpectedly last week. While he was performing, he performed and then was getting ready to conduct a haiku workshop at the Edmonton Poetry Festival. And in honor of David today, of course, we will be doing much more as in a couple weeks, be having probably another tribute for David in our open mic as well. But today, Max Vandersteen is going to start us off with a poem by David's as a way to pay tribute to his contributions here to Cultivating Voices live poetry. Thank you so much, Max, for being here. And we also put in the chat the reading that will be done by the Parkland Poets on this Thursday, which will also be a tribute to David as well. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's an honor to be able to pay tribute to a man like David, who was a great poet and a very dear friend of mine. We known each other for only about 10 years, but he was also a man who worked in the oil patch like I did. So we had that in common and a great interest in social justice. So It was a shock to us. I had seen David on the Thursday night, and he did a reading where he was a featured reader, which he did on a couple of occasions during the poetry festival here in Edmonton. And like Sandy said, after the reading on Thursday evening, he was to do a workshop on haiku poetry, collapsed just before it commenced. So one of the poems he shared on the Thursday evening at Parkland Poets was about artificial intelligence. And that's the poem I chose that I'd like to share. It's called A Non-Love Letter to Artificial Intelligence. And he starts off with a quote from Ravi Narayanan. And AI is a mirror reflecting not only our intellect, but our values and fears. And the poem goes, Dear AI, I am authoring this poem on the bus, away from your techno-octopus tentacles reaching everywhere. AI, you are not I. You are just a rationalized mishmash of plagiarized algorithmic perspectives with the personality of a snail. I know you can outplay chess and Go masters, compute 1,000,000,000,000 mathematical calculations, and write a Shakespeare-style sonnet in 10 seconds. But try to duplicate the great inner bard in all his humanistic profundities. I am a quirky, offbeat, eclectic information gatherer, digital dissident with a localized perspective. It is my succulent sovereign signature. I was breastfed warm milk. You are fed cyber mother's cold milk. AI, you are not an I, but I have an all I altering alters all. AI revels in mapping the known. I revel in mapping the unknown with perfect tone ownership of being human. Note, the I altering alters all is a William Blake phrase. And that was by David Brydges.
Thank you so much, Max. And I really I really can't help but think that David would have just loved this reading so much today, in what our poets explored. It was kind of, the way that he put poems together also, and to read a poem that he had read on Thursday night. I so appreciate you being here with us today. Um, I know
That
that
was so typical of his voice.
so typical of his voice. It truly is. I should also mention, and we have again, folks, you will be very welcome to go to Parkland Poets on Thursday night, the 8th, for a tribute to David as well. I know that I'm going to be going, and I think Don is probably going. So I know that the folks up in Canada will be very, very happy to welcome any of you who would like to pay tribute to David, who, um, was a frequent reader here with us, and one of the few people who, as I mentioned, guest hosted, and only recently in February. So yeah, I'm just sending out again my absolute condolences, and to all who really appreciated. There was a lot of shock over the internet over this, and I'm glad that we can use poetry to come together, not only to process our grief, but also to pay tribute to our friend who, again, was an incredible poetry citizen, and whom I'm really going to miss so much. I spent a lot of time with David in the green room after the programs. After our programs, we often hung out a lot. So, all right, thank you. That's Max Vandersteen, and we go now next to Jennifer Elise Wang. It's so good to see you today. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I had to pop in because of the theme. I love sci-fi. Like, make sure it's both a Star Wars and a Hamilton reference. It's backwards, but it says birth shot first. So, Yeah, kind of continuing the theme of poems based on movies. This is one I wrote about Blade Runner 2049. There's just some really striking imagery in that, and then also just thinking about the world we live in. So, this is Dreams of Toy Horses. This world is so bleak. It's no wonder we're told to not think, just do. We don't need ideas when AI can handle that. Sometimes they're better at feelings too. We try not to think about that, not just because of the thing we're not to do, but because that means we're even more replaceable than what our employers reveal when they discard us at any indication of defect or decline. Like a weakening body, or thinking or dreaming about toy horses or unicorns, and a greater role beyond a cog in the capitalist machine. But unfortunately, that is our destiny, to be parts and numbers, moments lost in time, with the memories that were never ours. At least we look good in bisexual lighting. Oh, Sandy, I think you're
Yeah,
muted.
thank you. I am muted. I couldn't get to my mute button. Oh my God. Thank you. Wow, that's a great last line. I hope you'll come back in June. This is a little preview, folks. Our Poetry Pride Parade, not one, but two. June 15th, June 22nd. Mark those on your calendar. Thank you so much, keeping us along that theme of the science in the films. Fantastic. All right, we go now to Don Krieger. Hi, Don, and thank you for everything today.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Lynn and Kim and Michael and everyone else who's read here. And thanks, Max, for reading. I wanted to read this one. It's from a folio of 18 poems that I wrote called "When Danger Is Past, Who Remembers?" Teflon. For Ed White, Roger Chaffee, Gus Grissom. Apollo 1, January 27th, 1967. Stitch welds came first, gold plate, steel pins, nickel wire, each weld inspected, reworked till perfect. Flat packs on the flip side, solder gleaming like a mirror, each inspected, reworked till perfect. Then the edge connectors and the wiring harness, Teflon coated copper soldered into gold plate cups. We knew by then Teflon flows under pressure. A kink in a cable can short and ignite. That's what killed Apollo 1. Our work flew, no problem, though our last half-ton balloon payload landed in a Texas pasture on a cow. That Indran took that poem for Beltway Quarterly. I wanted to read it for you because in the journal that Kim founded.
Well, thanks for making all those connections with one poem. Impressive, as always. Thank you. That's Don Krieger, everyone. I'm looking forward to seeing what Rick Spisak has for us on this topic of science fiction, because I get to hear you on Lime Square Poets, and you take us on some amazing rides. So here we go.
I'm going to offer you a bit of science, and the beauty to me of science is it's self-corrective. And many of you I know have heard of the Brontosaurus. Well, that's been revised. So I offer you this. It's called the Bronto I Never Saurus. Oh, Bronto, so sorry, Saurus, not once but twice. Removed from us, not relinquished to museum rust, not languished, piano weary neath a veil of dust, must while away the hours you trust, for far away from us you twice. It isn't really very. Not only do you no longer live, not now, even in that slim aware must give, no live. Because they said you never did, not even once did breathing live, deuce duncing life, not ever child, not ever wife, reclaimed once, it seemed, from ancient mire, now, so short in hours retire, twitch-tossed, great long-tailed beast 500 tons, weaving through our imaginations, you lumbering come, we thought you dumb, we saw you 10 elephants long, but we never thought you hadn't come. 'Twas said, 'twixt head and tail, a bristly bundle of fibrous fun, you drove 2 brains instead of 1. You cheated death, you cheated grave, you never even really came. A mis-ID'd they now are knowing, heard from scientific newscasts crowing. Now they know, now seem saying, those in whose minds you once seemed playing. 200 tons, a slowly moving mountain of mistake. You didn't nuzzle the reeds at the lake. You didn't puzzle at volcanic passion. You didn't stumble through the marshy morning while midst munching grasses muffle yawning. You didn't stretch. You didn't hug the sunlight's strength. You never stretched your tail its length. If you live lusty longer in the mind of those to whom the thought of Bronto comes, small pleasure this, then take it comes. You're honored here. If ever future number, ancient fossils done. It seems that what we've been calling brontosauruses were just diplodocuses. Teenage diplodocuses, who would have guessed? And there you go, the Bronto I never saurus.
Oh, thank you for taking us back to the age of dinosaurs that we never saw. Beautiful. It's amazing that the next person is reading is Billy Brown, because I think there was maybe the last time, Billy, I saw Rick read, I was like, I felt like you two were like brothers separated at birth. Like, not in every way, but like there's certain, I was like, oh, this has Billy Brown-esque qualities sometimes, like you're not always, but I could see a version of Billy Brown in what Rick was doing, and and a version of Rick in what you do, and I'll stop there. So I'm like just flabbergasted that the universe put you together, and you're literally next to each other on my squares. It was meant to be today. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. And thanks to everyone who's read so far. It's all very, very wonderful. And it's a joy and a pleasure and an honor to follow Rick Spisak. When thinking about the topic of science, I think way back to when I began college as a freshman in 1962. I was a die-hard science student. When I took sociology as my social science requirement, I could not stomach calling it a science. It was a bit of a stress to be required to take Western civilization 6 days per week for 4 semesters. In Western Civ, we were forced to study great works of art and, of all things, poetry, for which I had acquired such an intense hatred after being humiliated in high school English. I refused to read poems and never wrote a line in response to them, vowing never, ever to engage with poetry. I began as a chemistry major after my father soon changed to mathematics when I couldn't stay awake at my 8 a.m. chemistry lectures. Still, I experienced a certain jealous yearning when I observed the joy displayed by theater majors in their warm community. For many years as a mathematics professor, I felt at some level I could write poems. I could be a poet, but I almost never felt any feelings with an intensity sufficient to put pen to paper until I experienced tragedy so intense that I had to express myself in poetry. The relief I felt after writing a grief-filled poem was transformational. And now I question the unintended consequences of scientific advances, engineering solutions. I fear the misuses of artificial intelligence and so many other technical developments. Global warming, air and water pollution, species annihilation, inhuman atrocities. Now I find solace, satisfaction, comfort in poetry, music, baking, theater, opera, personal closeness, no longer in scientific advances. Thank you.
What a turnaround, Billy Brown. And are we all the better for it? Thank you so, so much. Thank you so, so much. Good to see you today. Well, our next reader, I think this is your first time here on Cultivating Voices to share a poem. If I'm mistaken about that, my apologies. Stephe Watson. There you go. You'll unmute and
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Hello, welcome. Thank you. I'm so glad for everything. And my plan is to elevate everybody's poetry by reading mine. No need to thank me. This is Luna Wolf. She's with me whenever I read. I'm a meditation teacher, and so this is my science fiction. The last word in this poem is a homonym, so it's kind of meant to be read. I don't think I read it out loud too often, but the final word is right, as in with a pen, but it's meant to mean both ways. So this is called Mountain Tea Certainty. I have to squint so very hard, so hard that tears extrude, sprung forth on a damp and dewed cheek, a blush and wan, to see the glazed potter's mug, the one polished by calloused hand after calloused hand, generation after generation of father passing to son, passing to daughter, passing to student, passing to daughter, passing along and passing on in each passing year, burnishing and buffering, chipped and faded, but all in all, from one to next, from hand to hand and kettle to mouth, unbroken. So very hard to see, to know, to see all this, all that in hand, at hand, rather than this contemptibly common, this regular irregularity, this light roast milk toast and plastic Dunkin' Donuts styrofoam. I have to dull my tongue, scrape and deny each of the many bumpy, grumpy papillae to believe that this wet warmth is green tea, born of a Chinese sun, toasted in a Chinese wok, trundled up a Chinese mountain, steeped in waters at the base of a steep Chinese ravine. If I am to taste, not this fast food substitute for the actual and sincere reality, the tea that called to me, I have to crook and crinkle my nose into a cartilaginous contortion of malodorous malformity and bend its volatilities with a blend of memories of a trip once took to lands of staggerings, of staggering beauties, of staggering thoughts, of staggering dimensions, of staggering myth. If I am, if only for a time, to breathe in aromas of jasmine, of tangerine, of oolong, of herbs that have all along been heaven sent, if I am to disregard the nitrous noxiousness wafted by a raft of autos on a nearby express to meaninglessness way. I have to hear hard to hear what's hard to hear, the mountain meadow swarms, the chanting, echoing from distant or not so distant mountain glades, the trickling brook tumbling down mountainsides, soon to slake a village, sooner still to slake a yak, if I am ever at all to hear not my neighbor cursing again his luck at life in some novel way, some novel circumstance, to hear not the clattering pipes in my plumbed house, to hear not the gravel drives crunching as yet another in an unending visitor's four wheels wheels through. I have, though, but to touch, my hand to pen, my palm to cup, my heart to head, my feet to earth, if I am anywhere this poet needs to be. I am a hermit. I am on mountaintop. I am alone. There are birds and jasmine, snow-packed waters underfoot. These details are just details. I am a monk, a hermit. I am alone. I am a mountain. Right?
Oh, how wonderful for a debut with us. Thank you. Come back. Come in 2 weeks. Come back for a wild card open mic.
I will. I put it on the calendar. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. So good to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, bestie.
From my own state of Connecticut. That's my bestie from down the road. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. I'll see you. I'll maybe see you before then. All right. We go now. Oh, and by the way, you elevated yourself. Just so you know. Over across the pond, Catherine Ronan. Wouldn't be a Sunday without Catherine Ronan.
I'm the West Cork bestie.
You're the West Cork bestie. You are indeed.
I'm going to read from my book, Elemental Skin, and I'm going to dedicate this poem to Dear David. And it's very short. It's called Butterfly Eyes. Cheek to face and face to cheek, you follow me like a half twin floats between two letters of the universe as if it were marshmallow. I know when you write, I am writing too. Threads needle deep into the black between stars, loving now in a glass of here at last. Oh, brother, I have unset the garden for you, rotted all the cabbages with butterfly eyes, and switched the clocks to spin again. For you, David.
So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, butterfly eyes. Beautiful. Well, we go from West Cork over to one of my Olympia besties, Cynthia Pratt.
Okay, so just a couple things, in case you aren't familiar with it. 4 refers to a character from Divergent, and Cameron Sullivan is a character from the second season of White Lotus. Every movie star, even Theo James, wants a poem about themselves. And why not? If they are handsome but accessible to the masses, that's you and me, sisters. But would he want to be 4 in this story where he needs little words only that makes us all want to jump off rooftops? 4 could go anywhere this poem takes him. See the tower ahead that he will climb hand over hand, fingers edging each paved crack in the building blocks. See him swim across the Rhine at an Olympic speed that would make any of us swoon. I think, though, that some of you, not me, certainly not, like him better as Cameron Sullivan because he is their bad boy they have always dreamed about getting tangled up with. I can picture him now in the third season, getting some pretty bauble pregnant, or him coming down with Clap. Of course, that scenario is too harsh. My woman friends scream at me, so I change the scene with him deciding to become a monk and join a monastery. He gives up his worldly possessions and all sexual proclivities. Still, that doesn't satisfy those females that want him to settle down with someone like themselves, a good man, but one that likes to roam with his eyes. Only in their fantasies, he would not stray. A token to screenwriting that ends happily ever after. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I've never heard that. I've never heard that poem of yours.
First time.
First time. Wow. Fantastic. Thank you. Oh my gosh. That's Cynthia Pratt, everyone. Well, I'm going to close us out with a poem from my first collection, Boats for Women, that is both about science and an element of fiction. I think the poem will explain how that unravels, and it's in 3 parts. And in the first part, you'll also hear that the end line, you might notice this, the end line words are in nesting rhymes. This is called Honors Biology. 1. We were never dissecting the dead frog. Oh, I want to also say, I kind of got the inspiration to read this when Lynn was reading about the frog. So, yeah, so thanks, Lynn, for the inspiration. Honors Biology. 1. We were never dissecting the dead frog bathed in flies before our feet, its sun-baked limbs splayed like lies, drying on the sidewalk's tongue. Sometimes her eyes spied like this, so to stop her straining her amphibious nerves, I tried training myself to overlook her like forecasted rain. We were all aquatic once, so I forgave her occasional slink beneath the surface, uncoupling the links we'd found to identify ourselves. Once, after dripping ink onto glass slides to highlight the disasters I made of my specimens, my lab partner and I observed asters shining in the cytoplasm before the cells stirred into identical twins. Daughter cells, the film strip called them that day. Mr. Helska tripped over the cord while advancing the frames, ripping his nerves long before anyone argued over homosexuality in school. Still no one scored well on the sexuality unit, we read. I stayed up drinking weak tea all night with my partner before the test. I refused to cut open the frog the next week. Mr. Helska tapped his pen against my desk in disgust. Later in algebra, I couldn't solve for n. 2. But it wasn't a dead frog drying this morning on the sidewalk. On the return walk home, the dead frog spread into a green leaf, just fallen, face down, its backside the same creamy green as the dead frog I didn't see. And the frog in honors biology was a pig, and I was the one who dug the blade in one ragged line, the length of the pink rubber eraser that was the pig, although I hesitated. And although I didn't understand, my crush was on the girl at the next station, not my partner who never studied with me that night. And love never arrived in the form of a woman pushing me to the ground. And this morning it rained, so I caught the bus. 3. She is always perched just on the corner whenever I ask my just polished shoes to risk the sidewalk's cracks, to turn away from the arrows slicing toward their marks as I pass the sooty windows of the Prairie Bowman Archery Club at the intersection of 14th and M, and hear the arrows plunge into the simulated paper breast of a deer, the same thud my body made the day I dropped to the ground, hoping to hear the future moving toward us like a weak pulse travels the rails before the train's scheduled arrival. In the alley, a dead bird intent on the sky doesn't look dead, but is. Unlike the night she and I left the theater to find something thrashing against the curb, a bird, one eye staring into the asphalt, mistaken for the night. The bird kept knocking its impaired wings toward the sky. We stood above the bird, circling its erratic motion like a ballroom dance, afraid to cut in, neither of us wanting to touch the bird, its dusty scratched wings. But the claw was the problem, I told her, snapped like a twig. Months before, she pressed the back of her head against the dark dartboard on my living room door. Just the possible scores haloed her head like a dare, so I kissed her. We stared at each other for a long time. If only the bird would fly, we thought. We won't have to know where it lands and dies. Packed in my jacket, the bird was not a heart cut perfectly out of the body, but simply a bird, pulsing in my hands, dying. Well, that's it for today, folks. Our program on science/fiction. I want to thank once again our featured poets for today, Lynn McGee, and collaborators extraordinaire, Kim Roberts and Michael Gushue, and all of you who read on the open mic. We began, of course, with Max Vandersteen reading one of David Brydges' poems, and, rest in your powerful poetry, David. Then we heard Jennifer Elise Wang, Don Krieger, Rick Spisak, Billy Brown, Stephe Watson, Catherine Ronan, Cynthia Pratt, and we ended with a poem from me from Boats for Women. Folks, join us next week, and be sure to tell all your friends to come on back. It's our second Sunday, which always means it's our new book showcase. And we have a really phenomenal new book showcase for May, featuring Laura Daniels, Jenja Bailey Blackburn, Patricia Clark, and Lilo Way. And I'll just mention, Lilo and I did the reading, the Poetry Circus in Seattle. So she's going to be reading from that collection called Flying Trapeze Poems. And they are as spectacular as being on the high wire. So join us for all our 4 readers next week in our new book showcase. Thank you so much for being here. It is never lost on me when you choose to spend a Sunday afternoon for me with all of us and sharing your poetry. I'm really always struck now, we need poetry more than ever. We need to connect as much as ever, and poetry is an incredible medium upon which to do that. It really does allow us to share our humanity in a very profound way. So thank you for doing just that today, and I hope you will continue to do that for many Sundays to come. And with that, my friends, I end how I always end the program, saying take very, very good care of yourselves this week. Take exquisitely good care of your beloveds. And wow, look at the fiction that we can find in the nonfiction of life when we keep writing our miraculous poems. Keep doing just that, my friends, and I'll see you next Sunday. Be well.